I'm Jay Cleveland Payne, and I'm here to present for you the Weekly Roundup. Weekly Roundup presented by the Conversation Project, where I will give you 12 stories rounded up from the last week in our presentation of our live show, our morning daily show called Things You Might Not Have Heard. It's a morning news update of stories from the previous day that gives you a chance to talk about the stories you want to talk about. And these are 12 of the stories from the past 5 days we covered, going from Friday the 13th to Friday the 20th. And they're interesting. And there's ones that caught my attention. I think I can get a little extra cachet, a little chance to talk a bit more and do some updates in some of these cases. Some of them just happened, including if you're watching the video, the Mark Robinson thing basically just blew up. Although we've known about this for a while. Also, Diddy was a story that took a while to build. And of course, we're actually working off the second assassination attempt, which was, oddly enough, last weekend. Believe it or not, it's been a full week since this thing happened. And it's been blown out of the water by other news, amazing enough. But let's talk about we're going to present to you here for today. Today is the show for the week that ends on the 21st of September, 2024. And what we'll give to you, as I said, 12 stories that were interesting that we presented to you and we talked about throughout the week. Now, if you want to get your stories here, it's a bit of a load. You first have to get them into what we get through what we call the feeds. And then, of course, you get a chance to vote them up there. We'll explain more of that stuff at the end of it because it's really the stories that are important. And I get a chance to do some commentary, so it's that. More remind you that more details on how we do things, a full explanation of how things work out can be found at our website. This is theconversationproject.com. And of course, email us with your comments and concerns at theconversationinbox@gmail.com. More calls to action on the way. But first, let's talk about the first news story. No particular order as these stories combined, and not in order by date, not in order by their actual engagement. But these are 12 stories out of the many stories that just sort of caught my attention that I want to get a little extra talk into. Starting off with the story that is literally a week old, but so for some reason, it doesn't have much muster as the first one. Donald Trump is safe after an apparent assassination attempt at his Florida golf club. The suspect is a man named Ryan Wesley Ruth, who's a very, 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 very interesting character. Spent some time trying to recruit for Ukraine and for Taiwan in those foreign wars. Was arrested about a decade ago on some very suspicious charges, which including handling a weapon of mass destruction, some very large machine gun type weapon, some large fully automatic weapon, and is just kind of a nut. He supports some Democratic things, yes, but he does have some not quite MAGA dealings, but some stuff on the right, and it just seemed like the right thing for him to do. We actually don't have a real motive on this yet. This has been a week long, and we have the guy in custody, but we don't know what's going on. And part of that is because while we're not talking about it here and didn't have it really in the discussion for the Conversation Project's daily thing, there's a bit of a struggle. After the first assassination attempt, where the Secret Service, they released a report this week, all the things that they should have done better, many people are fighting over jurisdiction, including the state of Florida, who say, well, it's the state of Florida, so we should have this, says Ron DeSantis. FBI is like, no, this is our gig. There's that. Because of weapons, ATF is like, we should have some part in this. So there's various agencies who are trying to help each other and trying to outdo each other in who's in charge, specifically the state of Florida versus the FBI and who should be running the investigation. We'll see how the investigation actually runs itself or runs itself out going forward. But it is was an interesting take on what was happening. The president was never in any real danger. The Secret Service rolled up on the golf hole ahead of him, scouting things out, saw a muzzle of a rifle in the bushes, shot at the bushes. The man ran away. A bystander saw him running away, say, hey, this is odd. Took a picture of his car and his license plate. They found him in county later. All sorts of things are just in this one. Look up all the details on this story because we could be here all day. The whole 20 minutes could be taken up with Donald Trump in this one here. But we have plenty of other things to get to that are just as interesting. Some even more freaky once you get to Mark Robinson, because he's a thing. But check this one out. This is one that obviously should have gotten more people's attention. We should be talking more about this. And we are. The news is covering it. But our attention spans and things that are actually danger things, like the president seems to be safe right now, have moved us off of the main docket. Safety for our children is what the next story is about. And Instagram announced it's automatically putting teens into private accounts with increased restrictions and parental controls. This is happening whether they like it or not, assuming they set their account with their proper age. Now, back in the early days of Facebook, when you had to be 18, basically everybody just said they're 18 and rolled with it. So assuming you didn't make yourself a parental account, as a child, then you'll get these restrictions. And what it's going to do is going to just basically lock down who can access things and automatically make parental controls a thing. So parents have to do the button presses and release things. Example for my child, my daughter's 12 and she has a cell phone, but she has a cell phone from a special company with all these special parental controls. We control what she can see. We control who she talks to. We have to confirm. We have to actually go onto an app and add phone numbers into our phones so that she can talk to them. So her grandparents, her aunts, her uncles, her cousins, and friends that we meet from places, we have to get their number and do a bunch of hoops to get to that one. It does not have YouTube, doesn't have social media. It's basically just a phone so she can talk on it and a phone so she can text on it. And that's it. And yet still she rarely answers the phone when we call. But that's another problem. These automatic controls can help, should help, may help. We'll see how they actually come about. In most cases, like my daughter's phone, it really is a kind of pain in the butt because she wants to add some sort of, she had one to add a chess game. We got to go through hoops to add those things to it, let alone just let her go and do things. But it also adds an added level of safety that she can't just add things we don't know about, which she has tried many times so far. So we'll see if this works for Instagram going forward and if other apps can kind of jump on the same bandwagon with extra controls, because it's scary. It's really scary what goes out there. And as adults, what people tend to fall for and believe, let alone kids who literally don't have their brains fully formed, adults who should know better, who fall for things they should know better for. Let's roll into story number 3 this morning. And this is interesting head scratcher that may be another why aren't we in World War III type thing. So happening last week, and this one expanded. Let me just read the headline. Exploding pagers belonging to Hezbollah kills 8 and injure more than 2,700 in Lebanon. Hezbollah members were trying to their best to stay out of trouble, to stay out of a jam, to stay out of any issues where they can be tracked. So they're going analog. They went analog. They went analog a while back because these pagers were purchased a while back. So literally the members of Hezbollah are looking at the pager, they're getting a message and they're calling somebody back or saying some sort of written message in their pager and going with that one. One day last week, a mass message goes off and like 5,000 pagers go off and 5,000 pagers blow up. Literally. The picture here, which I guess I got off of Getty Images, so because I got a little clip of the copyright, so unfortunately that one, but it's blurred out where a man or a person's in a shopping center, person's at the store, just standing there, pager goes off and they fall over, dead. These pagers apparently been tampered so that there's a small transceiver so it can take a message, a radio signal, and a little bit of explosive to blow them up. Now, the whole thing gets even odder because 8 people died when their pagers blew up, and a lot of people, of course, were injured. A few days later, there's a funeral for people who actually died when their pagers went off. And while they're at the funeral, walkie-talkies blow up. And the walkie-talkie blows up at a funeral for these 4 people, and another guy dies. That killed about 7 people and injured about a couple hundred people as well. Low-tech options like this are what's going on. No one's taking the actual responsibility, but everybody's pointing the finger at Hamas. I'm sorry, everybody's pointing the finger at Israel and their terror fighting organization, the Mossad, because they're thinking they did that. Now, there's also the weird things happen. This one, as people who were involved with the company who stopped selling these things like a decade ago, are dealing with extra security because they think they ratted them out there. It's one of those things. Terrorists go out there, steal stuff, and just acquire it, and then they have it. And now people are worried about who built it because they think they built it wrong. This is another thing that's escalating issues in the Middle East, where Israel's already fighting people overtly, and now they're covertly fighting them. And so if everyone's angry, eventually it all, pun intended, may blow up on us. Story at number 4 this morning, and this is one we'll take very quickly because it's really not much into the story other than the loss of nostalgia. Tupperware, the company, is filing for bankruptcy as they are losing relevance and losing much money. They currently have, at the time of the story, about $679.5 million in assets. That's how much money in the bank. But they have debts of $1.2 billion. they owe twice what they own, and so they're having issues. They're going to reorganize. They're going to cut some people, cut some staff, as people still use plastic containers and reusable containers for things. They just aren't using the valued, storied, beautiful Tupperware, which is sold still basically by MLL standards. A party online, something that someone goes upstairs and they perform with Tupperware. They show you it, they display it for you, as opposed to you go to the store, buy some cheap Gladware and walk off with it, and it melts after 3 or 4 tries, but you don't care because it's cheap. It doesn't last forever. It's not beautiful. It doesn't have the story behind it. It's Tupperware, and they're dealing with financial issues, filing for bankruptcy this week. This is the first of 2 disturbing stories, the second of the teaser stories we had in the graphic, but the first of the really, really, really disturbing stories we have about people. And it's a sad story. This one is a sad case because this is a person that a lot of people look up to, especially my generation, as we are essentially the same generation, same age. A guy that started from very little and made his way up to the top in music, in industry, in business. And then we find out it wasn't so much a lie, but a house of cards built on a lot of very strange stuff, that because he got that fame and infamy, he could pull off a whole lot of evil in the process. The headline that we use for story number 5 is Sean Diddy Combs indicted on sex trafficking, racketeering, and prostitute-related charges. And this headline, or the story, got 3 hits this week. One, the initial charging, the second, him being arrested, and a third one on some expanded things and the fact that he's not going anywhere, pun intended, because of being a flight risk. Sean Combs, whose house was raided a few months back, and his son was arrested there, and we find out more about what happened and what they found in these raids. Guns, money, sexually graphic material, and a lot of baby oil, a lot of personal lubricant, because Sean Combs has been charged and is being alleged to running extremely long, extremely extravagant sex parties and using drugs and other intimidation to coerce the women who have been in the sex parties, who were essentially servicing the men, and in some cases women, to keep them compliant, essentially having them drugged up and just so out of their minds bonkers, they would just do whatever they were told. Sean Combs went to New York City to negotiate his surrender, and in the process, they picked him up anyway because they didn't want to negotiate. And in the process of that, decided he can't get any bail because while he was negotiating his contract, negotiating his surrender, he was on the phone with people who may testify against him, saying really mean things, tampering with witnesses. Because of that, they don't trust Sean Combs, and he is going to be locked up for a while unless something else happens and they can release that. But he's not getting any bail, not getting any sort of release. They think he's just going to skip as soon as possible because these charges are terrible. These charges are serious, and we're going to see how this one plays out. All the jokes aside, we've seen a lot of stuff, including Harvey Weinstein, who got re-indicted again this week. And a lot of comparisons to this thing, and basically a generational thing where he is essentially a younger version, a Gen X Harvey Weinstein. This is a sad thing. This is sad for me, is watching him grow, and why I may have fallen out with the fact that some of his business tactics and his sort of just general demeanor just got kind of crash and stupid. So, and I've outgrown the music itself as well. I feel bad for a guy who I looked up to as a business person who got his business done. We got to find a way to pay the kids. Essentially, that's what's happening. The new name, image, and likeness rules for college football, specifically college basketball as well, college sports just in general, is finding ways to make compensation for the children, if you will, who are making compensation as being players for these college teams. College football is a money-making business. It just is. And the players out there should get something in return, not just the free education, because yeah, they get a chance to, they get a chance to do an audition for a bigger gig, but that's not guaranteed. The number of students that make it from college to the pros are low. So a lot of these folks are playing for dreams that aren't going to happen. Some of them are playing for the right reasons to get educations, but essentially they are paying as indentured servants to their universities. And so Tennessee has a new way they're thinking that will get some money into their pockets. They're adding a 10% football fee, a game fee to each ticket that they'll sell starting next season that will go to the name, image, and likeness fund to compensate those student athletes, a talent fee for the students. Sounds like a great idea. Whatever you pay for box office at the gate, 10% added to that one goes straight to the students' pockets, or to the fund to go to the students' pockets. This will work great for football, because people spend a lot for Tennessee football. And currently this is just being touted for just football games. No word sets for other gear, in the bookstore, things like that, buying things online, things paid for in the stadium, just your ticket to the game. We'll see if this is a hit in a way of doing great work to get students more compensation for their efforts, and whether more schools will put up with this one. So far, the QR code on the back of a helmet to donate to the students, not looking like it's going to be a great adoption rate on that one, but direct funding from direct sales may work out a bit more, makes a bit more sense, and people may actually kind of go along with it and just like, oh, a fee, we'll pay it, go from there. We're asking you while we do this show to help us grow the show and help us grow all the things we do for the Conversation Project and More Better Media, our umbrella company that holds a lot of different media companies we have. But this one here, particularly for the Conversation Project, which is about news and news stories and conversations, we need your help to grow. So we'd like you to like the video, like the podcast audio if you're listening there, and do what you can to like us wherever you find us on your podcatchers. So show people that this is an engaging story, engaging process, engaging podcast video for those to see. Share it with other folks who get more people in our queue directly. If you share it to somebody, they'll probably watch it or listen to it. And if they watch and listen to it, they may react to it and like it themselves. And we want all of you to subscribe to our feeds, our videos, our audios, our feeds, so you can help us engage in stories. We'll explain that in just a bit. So we get the stories here for you to talk about. Like, share, and subscribe so that we grow our fan base and we can basically have more interactions with you guys out there. Back to the news, back to the Teamsters. The president of the Teamsters has announced they're not going to endorse anybody for 2024. Now, you may remember he showed up for the Republican National Convention, and he had one of the more buzz-killing speeches there, as everybody was rah, 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 red meat. And then, of course, Trump was like, rah, 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 I'm nicer. No, I'm not. I'm still mean. But this was a speech that was historic because he came, he spoke, he gave good words, and he didn't really endorse any side while I gave that speech, but said the Teamsters are open to everyone. Yeah, Democrats tend to be the parties that deal with the main members of the unions, the people who run things, people who are in charge, but the rank and file seem to be really into Republican stuff, really sort of into Donald Trump. So we're not going to jump on, and we're going to stand on the fence right now and keep an eye on things. And they did not get invited, at least Teamsters didn't get invited. Other unions got invited to the Democratic National Convention, partly because of that, partly because of the way things are working, and partly because it is still a coin flip and who's going to win this thing. The Teamsters are stepping back. Now, they have backed the Democratic candidate since 1996. So they've been in the tank for the Democrats for 20 years or so. This year, they're going to sit back and watch and see what happens. And who wins and who on that side wins will actually try to do their best to court them back or just screw it all up in the process. It is unfortunately time. It is time we have to deal with this story right here. And this story is one of the youngest stories because it basically broke Thursday into Friday. And so with all the salacious news that happened with it in that short period of time, it's amazing that it's the replications and ripples that it has going forward. The headline for the story that we put for this week as the 8th story for our recap, North Carolina GOP Governor nominee Mark Robinson vows to keep running after a report on racial and sexual comments. The bottom line is CNN did an expose on Mark Robinson because when somebody has that much dirt, you got to dig it up. You got to toss it at them. Mark Robinson, for decades, literally decades, essentially as the internet was being birthed, has used various profiles, various email addresses, various usernames on various sites to get his freak on, including lots of porn sites. And they dug back into some of the comments on some of these sites, which are decades old, but basically how Robinson and some of the newer things we're seeing, we saw the report about him going to a sex shop and buying a pizza, 5 days a week. That was recently popped up in the news, and people are like, I guess he likes porn. He really must like porn, and he likes being a outlandish person. The things he has said in politics, outright, things that implied, I'm going to say implied because we don't want to have anything repercussions, but it sounds like he thinks women don't need the right to vote and that slavery wasn't such a bad thing. Some aspects of slavery actually worked out best for us. This is a black person who's a lieutenant governor of North Carolina somehow, who started off as a pizza delivery guy and got his start in politics by showing up to school board meetings and touting all the crazy stuff about, kids and litter boxes and books and bannings, things like that. And somehow I got to be the lieutenant governor of North Carolina, which may explain how that office really doesn't mean very much. And it has a shot, although he was basically losing steam, to be the governor. I think going on blackafrica.com, calling yourself a black Nazi and, saying really crazy things. The black Nazi is like one of the easier things to sort of swallow. And of course, talking about your love for transgender porn while being anti-trans in the process, saying trans is evil, yet being a big fan of it and actually talking about it in a way that's saying that you actually enjoy it. I think that's going to end this campaign. It is ending his cooperation with the Trump campaign, who Donald Trump calling him, the best thing since Martin Luther King Jr., even better than Martin Luther King Jr., who has now not said a word about him in 2 days and was supposed to appear together in a rally sometime this weekend, and he ain't. Robinson's been at all the rallies that Trump has had in North Carolina beforehand, and now he ain't. The Republican Party are still saying, we're down with Mark Robinson because they can't actually take his name off the ballot because the deadline was the day of the profile. I guess that was timed very well. But many Republicans around the nation and those in the state are like, yeah, we were worried about this dude in the first place. Yeah, we lost this thing. We're going to see what happens for the gubernatorial race in North Carolina because he's on the ballot. Somebody's going to vote for him. We'll see what happens if this is going to be the landslide and whether it actually takes down people down ballot or if it actually takes down Donald Trump up ballot because he needs North Carolina to win. We revisit Brazil and Elon Musk using Starlink to get past a ban on X in Brazil. And because of that, he's being fined about $1 million a day. He can afford it. And my commentary on this one when we put this out there was a bit of a cautionary tale. Because I'm not a big fan of Musk the person, and I don't have too much real issue with Musk the business person, although I have issues with the businesses themselves. But Musk the person who uses his business as toys to play with and for his own ego is doing this here. He's playing a Robin Hood figure where he's giving folks in Brazil an option to access free speech with the X platform and paying money out of his pocket with Starlink to lose money to give it to the folks in Brazil. Now, the crackdown in Brazil is more than shady, so we get that there. It keeps the people from having public conversations and accessing information that they don't want to have. That is, of course, bad. That is, of course, censorship. Elon Musk saying, I'll use my platform and I'll let you guys get it on top of that. It's violating laws of the nation, which is a problem. It's violating laws of just sort of general just not being rude, which is kind of a problem. And it's something that he's offering up that he's not offering up to many other places. So you have to kind of go through which ones are better. He didn't want to give Starlink to the Ukrainians. The United States is paying Elon Musk to keep Starlink up for Ukrainians so they can use it for their war efforts because he didn't want to make Russia mad, apparently. But he's all about making Brazil mad. He's all about doing this one and doing free speech for the Brazilians, even though X itself, not the best place for free speech. It really is, in a lot of cases, a dumpster fire of just unchecked, random trash, honestly. But it is a way for people with no platform to gain a platform. So with that, I guess that makes him a hero or an anti-hero. He's the problem. It's him, apparently. There's a problem at Amazon. as all workers must return to the office. So says their CEO. And this is, it feels like we've been fighting this fight for forever. And it hasn't been forever. It's been, literally 2.5 years, 3 years as we're coming out of pandemic stuff, coming out of the real sort of issues with pandemic stuff where more people around each other was a danger. So Amazon let people work 2-3 days a week remotely from the offices because it was there. What they found was people can get their work done, sometimes more work done. And it also costs them less money with commutes and buying lunches and being in meetings and time away and people distractions and things like that. But it has disrupted the workforce itself in the workforce itself. You don't have a water cooler to see where people are. You can't really kind of go stop by somebody's desk and poke them to get them stuff. You can't really get in the way of them getting stuff done, which unfortunately is kind of what happens in a real corporate environment where people are always there. Somebody can get in the way of getting something done, or someone can hijack someone's project and pull people aside to something going on because they're there. You can't really do that so well when you are all working remotely. It takes effort, takes whatever. And I work with people because I work in technology, and people that work in companies that are technology companies and they're also consulting companies, but they all work from home and they all work online and they all connect things and they all have Slack channels that are running back and forth so they can contact people in different projects because it's project based. Amazon saying it ain't happening anymore. It's not working anymore. We can't do that no more. From now on, everybody's coming into work. Everyone's coming to work because the post-pandemic, post-COVID-19 world is post and should go back. Make America back to the office again, essentially. Backlash and complaints are there. There's some time for this thing to actually come to fruition, to actually come to life, to actually be put into place. So there's some time for this to actually happen and 4 times to complain. But it looks like Amazon is going to make everyone office worker come back to the office and not do remote work unless there's some very serious sort of waiver. If they're technically actually contract workers, those folks may actually get a chance to stay home. But if they are Amazon employees owned by the company, apparently Amazon wants you back in your office because office space costs a lot of money, apparently. Good news. Let's get out of here with some gooder news, goodish news. We'll go get trashy for this 12 story. But for this one, we have a new Magic baseball player. This guy is our generation's Babe Ruth, and he's out of Japan of all places. Shohei Otani becomes the first Major League player with 50 homers and 50 stolen bases in a season, and he's not done yet. There's still a few weeks left in the season. The Dodgers have not quite clinched their playoff berth going forward, but they're pretty close to doing it. They're in first place. They're more likely going to do that. And under the arm, because he pitches, and the swing, because he hits a lot of stuff, and the legs, because he steals a lot of bases going forward. He went into the game on Thursday at, I believe, 49 bases stolen and 47 home runs, something like that. And he ended up with 2 bases stolen and 3 home runs and basically overtaking everything. And he's going to knock a couple more in the next couple weeks. Otani fever is everywhere. And although we started off the season with the bad story about his interpreter stealing his money, we have the full season to talk about just how good this player is. He's bringing a lot of interest to baseball here in the States. A lot of people, we're hearing stories out of Japan. People come to Los Angeles. They want to come to Dodgers games. They want to watch baseball and watch Otani play baseball. And guess what? Everyone except the people on opposing teams want to watch Otani play baseball. We're going to see this team make the playoffs. We're going to see if he can make this thing the perfect season, if you will, and get a big win for this one. But right now, let's show some love for the greatest player in the game right now, bar none. He's MVP. Don't even think about voting for anybody else. It is Shohei Otani. Finally, a new book coming out from Connie Chung, who goes into details, a memoir about how women were treated, how she was treated, her life. There have been a lot of little snippets out there, bits and pieces to get people interested because that's what you do. A bombshell came out a few days ago where she is digging into Dan Rather for bias regarding women. And this is something that apparently he was in the background business extremely famous for. Everybody knew that rather did not like women, and he was not a fan of the pairing that CBS did to make them co-anchors back in the day. Back in the 90s, they thought, we're going to do this thing like we did back in the old days and have two anchors and have them go back and forth like it is, the morning news, like it is on your local news station. And they did the traditional news look that they do now, essentially a guy and a woman going back and forth. Not that that's necessarily needs to be that way, but it was a way to show two people that look like y'all, a female and a male, going back and forth. It didn't work. It didn't work famously. It blew up like a total mess and waste of time when it came apart. And from the end of it, Connie Chung got a chance to talk about now, just seeing Dan Rather and his dismissive nature with her on the set, seeing his dismissive nature with all the female workers that were in the actual working environment, and knowing that Connie Chung broke barriers to get to where she was and was a pioneering anchor, and not being able to tap on that one, that being on Dan Rather, and use that to elevate himself, but essentially just to overthrow and push that his superiority was essentially the rule of the day. Now, at this point in time, everyone is so in love with Dan Rather because he has a Substack and he's talking truth and blasting against the MAGA world on just the sheer insanity that they happen to be, which is awesome. But there's a flip side to that one. Dan Rather may not be the hero that we thought he was as well, because he's had this past of, we'll just call it misogyny because it's the best way to describe it. Connie Chung says that he was extremely biased against women in the work they did in news, and he probably was really biased in the work they did in news as he was being ceremoniously kicked away from CBS. He's living a second life, so he's good with that one. Connie Chung doing what she can and getting a chance to speak her mind, speak her piece, and she is more than capable and more than free to do that. So hopefully this will pique more interest and sell some more books for Connie Chung. We wanted to pique your interest and sell some subscriptions to Ground News, because we use Ground News as one of our sources, one of our main sources to get stories to you for the Conversation Project. We'll explain how it works in a moment, but the Conversation Project pulls news stories and aggregates it for you to engage in. And when we're a little leery about how a story is being played or want to see exactly what to do to try to present it to you, we'll go to the Ground News version of it, or Ground News aggregated version, to see how it's going. Ground News will tell you how the news is actually being told. Truly. They have a meter that tells you how the coverage of a news story is going in a certain headline. It's simple. You look at it and there's a little meter. You can see if you're watching video. This is a story from a few weeks back. We'll screen grab a new screen grab. But essentially this story about Biden dropping out of the race, covered pretty consistently. It's got a big old wide white stand for the center of the coverage, with the blue and the red towards the tail ends, basically showing that it was covered by basically all bases and very wide coverage with no real salacious stuff on the right and left. If that meter moves, if it's more red than white than blue, then you know that more conservatives are engaging in it, more conservative media are pushing it. If it's more blue than white than red, more liberal media are doing that. And they'll explain to you which media they believe are what they are, and you can complain about them as you want to. AP essentially the standard as supposedly a standard news service, just a wire service, things like that, all the way to the left and right, where you have MSNBC and Newsmax and CNN and Fox News, where they go. CNN is actually fairly close to the center, believe it or not, for here. You may not believe it, but it is. And Ground News will give you a chance to see personally how your news is being covered. So if there's a news story out there and you're worried about it, who's saying what about it, you go to Ground News, you look for that story, and it'll tell you that it's being covered mostly by the right, mostly by the left, or pretty consistently. And if it does that, there's a blind spot feature that allows you to see what stories are being covered essentially all by the right and all by the left. You can see some of the crazy stories that you're not seeing, and some of the stories that aren't so crazy that you're not seeing, because your brand of news doesn't want to talk about it because it either says really good things about your side, or it says something really salaciously dumb about something, and it's not covered. So all those stories that you're seeing, you'll hear a story that is weird, such as dogs and cats being eaten in Springfield, Ohio. And you'll say, I'm not seeing any news on that. You can go see who's covering that story and find out that later that it's not a real story. That's a whole nother thing. Ground News can give you these options for literally less than $1 a month. If you're willing to pay for the Prime package, the premium package, you can get more in-depth news coverage for less than $10 a month. Check it out at our website link. This is theconversationproject.com/ground news. This is theconversationproject.com/ground news. This is an affiliate link, so if you subscribe to Ground News and you buy one of their packages, we get a small commission for you accepting this one. And this is something that you'll see and you'll hear a lot of your newsy type podcasts, your newsy videos, folks that go do in-depth stuff on coverage of things that happen in real time. A lot of them are actually using Ground News as a sponsor, and a lot of them seek them out, including we did as well. So we seek out Ground News, see if we can partner up with them so we know what's going on. We use them. We pay for them. We are dependent on them to keep us straight with our coverage, and you can keep it straight with your coverage of what you're seeing out there, especially seeing what news stories are not being presented by you. If you can honestly tell the world, you may lean left or right. Go to our website link, this affiliate link. This is theconversationproject.com/ground news today, and get more news, or I should say better informed news, to be a better informed person. Here's where we talk about how things work very quickly. The Conversation Project's online home is this. It's conversationproject.com. You go to our website, you learn more about us. You can visit our sponsors, you visit our partnerships page. We'll talk about partners in a moment. And you'll see past episodes of what we do. We have a daily show called Things You Might Not Have Heard that gives you 10 to 8 stories from the previous day or the weekend that get you started on your day about stories that are conversational. These are stories that you guys picked out, helped us pick out as stories worth talking about. Some of them are a bit off the beaten path, but you guys engage in it. It works like that. We need you to help pick those stories. Go to the website, learn all about us. Now, let's hype up our partners. Our partners go through a program, go through the website, buymeacoffee.com, and our link is J. Cleveland Payne. Our cup of coffee level sponsors are Kobe Green, Harold Braxton, Eldon Kidd. That's $5 a month. That comes to us, help to keep things going. Spare change is just $1 a month, but enough spare change will help so we can get some more spare changers. We would love more spare changers. Joy Winter's in the spare change bucket right now. Hopefully we can convince her to go up a tier because that's what we want. More tiers are available, but if you go become a partner, go to buymeacoffee.com/JClevelandPayne or click on the partnerships page at our website. You can become a monthly sponsor and help us keep things going here. We are a low numbered channel at the moment. We hope to get bigger. We need more engagement. But because we're low numbered, we don't get a lot of support, and this is coming out of our pockets and whatever you pay for in the sponsors. So we don't get massive amounts of influx. I still need to upgrade some stuff. And if you have been a partner or been following us for a while, you understand that for 14 months, I was essentially homeless as we were displaced from a tornado hitting our house, and we just got back into the house a few months back, and we're back to fixing things that still need to be fixed. It's a slog on the personal level. It's a slog on my day job because that's a pretty big deal, and on my businesses, which is one of them. So any contribution you can give to help us keep these things going, we do appreciate that. Partnership, go to the website and click the link for partners, or go to buymeacoffee.com/JClevelandPayne. Pick a tier of your own and go forward with that one. Now, on the wrap up of the roundup, if you will, I'll remind you once again, our website address is theconversationproject.com. Our email address, the conversation inbox at gmail.com, where you can email us with your comments, concerns all the time. We need you to check out our website and email us with your comments. And if you're a partner, partners chat with me all the time. Partners partners have a different way of reaching out to me via the platform, but emails are all read. You don't have to pay in to get your thoughts processed. Do that as well. Our feeds that we say are Facebook and X. Facebook.com/thisisconversationproject and X.com/th_conversation. What you do there is every 50 minutes or so, we post news articles from various sources. When you see those news articles, we need your engagement to tell us what stories are worth talking about. You just like them, you love them, you hate them, you share them, you engage in them, you comment on them. The more engagement a particular link gets, better chance we have of talking about it. We'll do 10 stories on Monday's edition of Things You Might Not Have Heard. We'll do 8 stories Tuesday through Friday, and 12 of those stories that made a big impact in my head, I think that you guys will talk about again, that I can do more commentary on. We'll put in this presentation for the weekend for the weekly roundup. That's how it works for the Conversation Project. That's how it works for things here. This is a weekly roundup for the week ending September 21st, 2024. We want to remind you, because this is Suicide Awareness Month, and we're trying to do our best to remind you on this one, just in case you do need this one. We ask you to keep some of our links from our sponsors in your pocket, things like that. This is something that's literally in your pocket. 988. It's the new number. It's not really so much new anymore. It's now the number for the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. And you can do it on your cell phone. You can text it or call anytime you want to and get someone to talk to you about whatever is going in your life. You can go online and get some guides and chat as well at 988lifeline.org. And 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, people available in English and Spanish to talk to you through whatever it is you're working yourself through. We hope you're working yourself through more new stuff, because that is our lifeblood here. It is what keeps me sane and keeps me from working through things, is chatting with you for things. So keep emailing me and have those chats on those stories. Some of them you don't like the way they present it, and I understand. We're going to present it the way I can, and that's what conversation is all about. Email me about what we can do to improve on the look, feel, and things going on. We're slowly getting more equipment and trying new things so we can try more things, but unless someone writes me a $10,000 check, it's a trial and error bit and piece thing, so you can work on that one. You can spell up that with sponsorship. You can engage in the feeds, which is what I need you to do most, because that tells me what to talk about. And if we get more people talking about it, and you like, share, and subscribe to these things, more people are in the queue to look at things, we can make it work. It's that simple. Love you guys. Mean it so much. Engage in the stories so we can prepare the stories for the daily shows. And, of course, the weekly show here. Follow us in whatever venue is best for you. We're on YouTube. We're on Facebook. We're on X. We're on Threads. We're on TikTok. Whatever works best for you, make sure you follow us there and like and subscribe to those things there so more people see us in those venues. We're done for this Saturday. We'll see you next week.